My name is Clara Jenkins, and I am 28 years old, living here in Portland, Oregon. My life revolves around flour, sugar, and the sweet smell of vanilla. I own a small bakery called Clara's Confections. It's nestled on a quiet street, a little haven of custom cakes and intricate pastries. People come to me for their special moments, birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, and I pour my heart into every single creation. I love the way a blank canvas of batter can become a masterpiece, a reflection of someone's joy. My hands, always dusted with a fine layer of flour, are my tools, shaping dreams into edible art. My shop isn't just a business. It's my passion, my sanctuary, my everything. I've worked tirelessly for years, often pulling all-nighters to perfect my craft and build a loyal customer base. My little dog, Sprinkles, a fluffy golden retriever mix, is usually asleep in the back room. Her soft snores a comforting rhythm to my whisking and mixing. Life wasn't always easy, but I was content, building something beautiful with my own two hands, contributing to the vibrant, creative spirit of Portland. Then, about 6 months ago, everything changed. A new bakery, Thorne's Treats, suddenly appeared right across the street from mine. It wasn't just any bakery. It was owned by a man named Marcus Thorne. He was slick, with a permanent smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, and a confident swagger that screamed big money. From the moment his flashy sign went up, casting a harsh glow over my cozy storefront, I felt a knot of dread in my stomach. Marcus didn't just open a bakery, he declared war. He immediately started undercutting my prices, offering almost identical cakes for half of what I charged. He even copied my unique signature designs, the ones I had spent countless hours perfecting. I would bake a limited edition lavender honey cake, and a week later, Thorne's Treats would have their own lavender nectar cake, looking suspiciously similar. My heart sank deeper with each passing day. My problem was clear. Marcus Thorne was systematically trying to destroy my life's work, to crush Clara's Confections, and I had no idea how to stop him. He wasn't just a competitor, he was a nemesis, a shadow looming over my once bright and sweet world. How could I compete with someone who seemed to have endless resources and no scruples? At first, I tried to ignore him, believing that quality would speak for itself. My loyal customers knew my dedication, my use of the finest ingredients, my attention to detail. I hoped they would stick by me, but Marcus's aggressive tactics were relentless. He launched massive advertising campaigns, promising impossibly low prices and speedy service. He even started spreading rumors, whispers that my ingredients weren't as fresh as I claimed, or that my baking space wasn't up to code. I tried to talk to him, to appeal to some sense of professional courtesy. One afternoon, I walked across the street, my heart pounding, and politely asked him if we could find a way to coexist. He just smiled that fake smile, leaned against his gleaming display counter, and said, "It's a free market, Clara. May the best baker win." His tone was dismissive, his eyes cold. He didn't care about my passion, my dreams, or my livelihood. I tried to innovate, to create new, even more unique designs and flavors, thinking if I stayed one step ahead, he couldn't copy me. I spent late nights experimenting with exotic fruit glazes and intricate sugar work, pushing my creativity to its limits. But it was no use. Within days, sometimes even hours, his shop would have a version of my latest creation, albeit a cheaper, slightly less refined imitation. I spent my meager savings on a small local newspaper advertisement, trying to highlight the authentic, handcrafted nature of my cakes. Marcus responded by plastering giant banners across his storefront, shouting about unbeatable value and award-winning flavor, claims I knew were false. I contacted the local business association, hoping they could mediate or at least address his unethical behavior. But Marcus, with his smooth charm and a hefty donation, had already ingratiated himself with them. They told me it was simply healthy competition, and there was nothing they could do. My staff, a small team of 2 part-time employees who had been with me for years, started to look worried. I had to cut their hours, then eventually, I had to let one of them go entirely. It broke my heart. The problem grew bigger and more serious with each passing week. My customer base dwindled. People who had ordered their wedding cakes from me years ago now went to Thorne's Treats for their child's birthday. My revenue plummeted. I struggled to pay rent on my shop, barely making it by the skin of my teeth. Sprinkles, sensing my stress, would often nudge my hand with her wet nose, her big brown eyes reflecting my sadness. I started doubting myself, questioning if I was good enough, if my dream was just too fragile for the cutthroat world of business. I felt exhausted, constantly working, yet seeing no progress. Every time I thought I had a plan, Marcus would effortlessly counter it, making my efforts seem futile. The joy of baking began to fade, replaced by a constant, gnawing anxiety. I barely slept, replaying scenarios in my head, feeling trapped and helpless. Then came the lowest point. It was late autumn, and the holiday season, usually my busiest and most profitable time, was approaching. I was already behind on my rent, facing an eviction notice if I couldn't come up with a significant sum within a month. My ingredients suppliers were getting antsy about overdue bills. I had to make the agonizing decision to sell my beloved antique mixing bowl, a family heirloom, just to keep the lights on for another week. To top it all off, Marcus announced a grand reopening extravaganza for Thorne's Treats, promising unbelievable holiday discounts and a brand new line of gourmet holiday pastries. His advertisements were everywhere, on social media, on billboards, even on local radio. It was clear he was making a huge, final push to completely annihilate me before the holidays. He even had a gigantic, gaudy cake displayed in his window, an obvious, poorly executed knockoff of my signature Winter Wonderland cake. It felt like a punch to the gut. I stood in my silent, empty shop, staring across the street at his brightly lit, bustling storefront. My dream, Clara's Confections, felt utterly shattered. I pictured myself closing the doors for good, packing up my spatulas and whisks and giving up baking forever. The thought brought tears to my eyes. I was certain that all was lost. There was no way I could recover from this. As I sat there, slumped over my dusty work table, the smell of stale flour now more prominent than sweet vanilla, a tiny spark ignited within me. It wasn't anger at first, but a deep, stubborn resolve. This wasn't just about money. This was about my integrity, my passion, everything I believed in. Marcus Thorne might have copied my designs and undercut my prices, but he could never replicate the heart I poured into every cake, nor the quality of the ingredients I painstakingly sourced. I thought about the subtle differences I'd noticed in his copied products. While his cakes looked similar, they often tasted off. There was a dryness to them, an artificial sweetness, a lack of depth. I remembered a specific, very expensive Tahitian vanilla bean extract I used, known for its complex floral notes. It was my secret weapon, giving my vanilla cakes an unmatched flavor. Marcus's vanilla cakes had none of that. He simply couldn't afford to use such a costly ingredient while selling at his prices. He had to be faking it, using cheaper, artificial vanilla. Suddenly, an idea began to form, a way to expose his deceit without stooping to his level. My revenge would be sweet, in the truest sense of the word. I started quietly gathering information. From my shop window, I'd noticed small things. Marcus's delivery truck often arrived late in the day, leaving perishable ingredients sitting on the curb for too long. His employees, harried and overworked, sometimes left the back door propped open, revealing disorganized storage areas. These were minor things, but they hinted at a disregard for food safety and quality control. I jotted down dates and times, noting what I saw. My main focus, however, was the ingredient lie. I began baking again, not for customers but for myself, experimenting with different types of vanilla, both real and artificial, analyzing the subtle nuances. I spent days perfecting a new, incredibly simple, yet profoundly flavorful vanilla bean cake, designed to highlight the purity of true vanilla. Then, I reached out to my remaining loyal customers, the ones who had stuck by me through everything. I told them about my passion project, a Taste of True Vanilla event I was planning for a Saturday afternoon. I didn't mention Marcus directly, but I spoke passionately about the importance of authentic ingredients and the difference they make. I invited local food bloggers and critics I knew, explaining that I wanted to celebrate the artistry of baking and the joy of genuine flavors. I put out a simple sign: experience the true taste of vanilla. Join Clara's Confections this Saturday. I made only a small batch of my special cake, enough for samples, knowing that word of mouth and genuine appreciation would be my most powerful tools. The day of the tasting arrived. My shop, for the first time in months, was filled with people, drawn by curiosity and a desire to support a local business. The aroma of pure vanilla filled the air. I served small, elegant slices of my cake, watching people's expressions as they tasted it. Eyes widened, smiles spread. "This is incredible, Clara," one food blogger exclaimed. "The flavor is so rich, so real." My message was simple: real quality, real ingredients, real passion. I then explained the difference between artificial and authentic vanilla, why genuine quality comes at a price, and how it's worth every penny. I didn't accuse Marcus. I let the contrast speak for itself. While the tasting was going on, I quietly sent an anonymous, detailed tip, along with my compiled observations about improper storage and delivery practices, to the county health department. I focused on verifiable facts, not rumors. The climax was swift and devastating for Marcus. The very next Monday morning, as Thorne's Treats was preparing for its grand holiday launch, two health inspectors, accompanied by a local news reporter, who had been at my tasting event and recognized the story potential, arrived at Marcus's shop. They found numerous violations, from improper refrigeration to mislabeled ingredients, including his premium Tahitian vanilla, which turned out to be cheap synthetic extract. The news report was scathing, highlighting the deceptive practices and poor sanitation at Thorne's Treats. The contrast with Clara's Confections, with its small but authentic tasting event, was stark. The consequences for Marcus were immediate and severe. His grand reopening was a disaster. Customers, already swayed by my tasting and now outraged by the news report, stayed away in droves. His suppliers, now wary of his damaged reputation, started pulling out. The city council, feeling misled by his previous donations, revoked some of his permits. Thorne's Treats, built on a foundation of deceit and cheap imitations, crumbled almost overnight. Within weeks, the flashy sign was taken down, and the windows were papered over. Marcus Thorne, utterly ruined, left Portland as quickly and quietly as he had arrived. My business, Clara's Confections, didn't just recover, it thrived. People flocked to my shop, not just for my delicious cakes, but for the story, for the integrity, for the belief that good still wins. I expanded my shop, hired back my old staff, and even brought on 2 new apprentices. I taught them not just how to bake, but how to bake with passion and honesty. I changed, too. I was no longer the timid baker, easily intimidated. I learned that my quiet strength and unwavering commitment to quality were my most powerful assets. I learned that authenticity is always the best revenge. My new normal was filled with the sweet hum of ovens, the laughter of my team, and the endless stream of happy customers. As close to the end as possible, there was an unexpected twist. A few months after Marcus disappeared, I received a thick, unmarked envelope in the mail. Inside, along with a stack of legal documents, was an anonymous letter. It wasn't from Marcus. It detailed how Marcus Thorne was actually part of a larger, well-funded corporate strategy, a shadowy conglomerate attempting to systematically buy out or run out small, local businesses in growing cities like Portland, replacing them with their own standardized, mass-produced operations. My actions, my quiet stand for quality and integrity, had not only exposed Marcus, but had also drawn enough attention to unravel a much larger, insidious scheme. My little bakery, Clara's Confections, had not just saved itself, but had inadvertently protected countless other small businesses from being devoured by a faceless corporation. The thought sent a thrill through me, a profound satisfaction knowing that sometimes the smallest spark can ignite the biggest change.